Right, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. As Mariana mentioned, I'm Casey Bell. I'm a senior economist at the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy, and I'll be speaking today about the finance market for energy efficiency investments. Along the way, I'm going to attempt to highlight opportunities for community advocates to catalyze market activity. My colleague Lauren Ross we'll also be adding a little bit of more depth into the multifamily market, and she's going to be covering ways that utilities, housing finance agencies, and community advocates can work together to scale up activity in this space. So first, a little bit of an introduction to the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy. We are a 33-year-old 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to advancing energy efficiency policy and investment through our research, policy, and technical assistance. One of the products that folks are most familiar with from us is our state energy efficiency scorecard, which we use to rank the performance of states based on their energy efficiency policies. And you could see the map from our 2013 state scorecard on this slide, and if you take a close look, you can see how your state is doing. And if you have any questions as to our methodology or any questions about policies or avenues for improving your score, I would encourage you to reach out to Lauren or myself. In addition to doing the state scorecard, we also do a local policy scorecard, and if there's any interest, I would also encourage you to reach out to Lauren, as well as an international scorecard. So here is a very short and incomplete list of the reasons that we do the things that we do. And I won't spend too much time on this slide because I believe that I'm probably talking to a number of believers. I will say that ACEEE does a lot of work, and we have a lot of reports in sort of quantifying these benefits to energy efficiency. In particular, things that might be of interest to this group is some of our work around economic development and job creation, as well as creating opportunities for financial access. So one thing that I would say, though, that I've learned as a researcher and an advocate in this space is that understanding the benefits of energy efficiency is not sufficient to driving demand for energy efficiency investments, driving policy to advance energy efficiency, or driving market activity. And this is where we get to barriers. This is the slide that I use to talk a little bit about common barriers to energy efficiency, as well as the potential for addressing them with financing. In my role at ACEEE, I tend to receive a number of phone calls from program folks asking about opportunities to develop innovative mechanisms for delivering energy efficiency, particularly on the finance side. And this is a really important piece to consider, and that is, what is the problem that you're attempting to solve? The purpose of using financing is really to resolve the upfront capital cost program. Financing can play a role in delivering efficiency to multi-tenant buildings that are dealing with split incentive issues by tying the obligation to the meter, but also it's fundamentally overcoming upfront costs, as well as advancing. And there's also a possibility to develop really attractive financing options that might help energy efficiency to take a priority over competing investment priorities. But there's sort of a mantra going on in the efficiency community that financing isn't necessarily the panacea for delivering energy efficiency. And I would probably take a little bit of exception. Well, I mean, I would probably rephrase that statement, not to say that it's not a panacea, but to say that advancing financing for energy efficiency is a necessary, though ultimately insufficient condition for getting the market to scale. So now when we look at the financing market, we see progressing along three parallel tracks. And to date, we have made the most effort in advancing tracks 1 and track 2, and that's driving capital to the market. In the past year, we have seen a number of really great efforts to bundle energy efficiency loan products, securitize them and sell them to secondary market investors, and increase the flow of capital into the market. We've also made a lot of progress in developing mechanisms for effective delivery of energy efficiency. And I'll get a little bit more into that in my next slide. But the key barrier that we're seeing right now is finding opportunities to drive demand. And I think that there's a lot of opportunities for community advocates to work in this space. And the efforts that would make a difference at this point include promoting policy solutions, which I'll talk about in a second, promoting consumer education, as well as working with consumer advocacy groups so that when we're developing financial products that we want to deliver to consumers, we're making sure that they are both achieving our objectives and are also safe and ultimately good for consumers. Policies, examples of policies that could help us get to scale include benchmarking and disclosure policies. So that within a specific region, building owners and managers can understand how their buildings are performing in comparison to other buildings. In addition, the establishment of loan loss reserves might help shred some of the risk and allow for us to develop more affordable finance solutions. And finally, in terms of getting effective products delivered to consumers, promoting enabling legislation for market mechanisms that are attractive to consumers is another important piece. So this is a slide which I absolutely love, but I'm not responsible for. Our colleagues at ACEEE have developed this fantastic slide that takes a look at some of the innovative mechanisms that are on the market to date to deliver financing, as well as the markets in which they are able to deliver efficiency and are making an impact. And I think this is a really interesting slide. One of the things that I encourage folks that are developing programs to consider is to take a look at when they are trying to select mechanisms to promote within their communities, the high potential markets that they're trying to serve, and ensuring that the products that they're developing have been shown to effectively serve those markets in the past or are well poised to do so in the future. So this is a really great slide that sort of takes a look at sort of a big snapshot of the market. And another big question is to look at the stakeholders that you can convene to facilitate activity in your target market. And Lauren's going to talk a little bit more specifically about multifamily. And finally, I just want to conclude by talking about an ACEEE initiative that may be of interest. On October 18th of last year, we convened a small group of small lenders to discuss some of the key barriers to lending for energy efficiency and to get their opinion on some of the ways in which policy, technical assistance, research, and engagement with private sector for product development purposes could play a role in advancing the market for energy efficiency investments. And in addition to gaining the lender perspectives, we wanted to find opportunities to provide some peer-to-peer networking opportunities so that lenders could learn from one another about tools that they've been using to engage in this space. The convening we've seen in sort of our reporting out from this activity really just a broad level of interest. Right now we have a mailing list of about 717 individuals that we are about to send an inquiry out to get a sense for things that we might want to do with this group in the future. We've just launched a LinkedIn page, technical assistance toolkit for lenders. In December, we'll be having a very small invitation-only convening to talk about opportunities in the multifamily market. And in terms of participation in this group, when we're talking about small lenders, we're looking beyond commercial banks, though we have a number of them involved and would like to see more of them involved, but we're also including housing finance agencies, CDFIs, and other mission-driven lenders. We even have a small startup that has been engaged with us that's doing crowdfunding for small commercial. And another benefit of engagement in this group is that we've also been connecting with philanthropic resources, and we have a couple of foundations, including MacArthur and JPB, that have been very interested in finding opportunities to use philanthropic funds to help small lenders to do more work in this area and pilot effective solutions. And with that, I'm going to turn over the presentation to Lauren. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Casey, and thank you, EOS, for the invitation to speak today and join in this informative discussion. So whereas Casey talked more about the overview of the financing market for energy efficiency investments in multifamily, and especially how you, community advocates, can really catalyze these markets, I'm going to be covering ways in which you on the ground can leverage and mobilize utilities, housing finance agencies, and other partners to work together to scale up energy efficiency investments in multifamily housing. So first, a little bit about what we're doing at ACEEE in the space of multifamily. I lead the Multifamily Energy Savings Project, which is a 3-year project to improve energy efficiency in multifamily housing, particularly working and engaging with utilities. So you'll notice I'll talk from that perspective quite a bit today. We provide research and technical assistance to utilities that are looking to create and improve their multifamily offerings. We also convene a utility working group to encourage peer discussion around best practices and overcoming challenges in this market. So as I said, many of the insights that I'll draw on today are a product of working with this utility working group. And I also have on these slides our website, and I encourage you to check that out for more information on this project, and then also research reports. So I'll start with this map. In 2013, we mapped utility-led multifamily programs across the U.S., particularly looking at the metropolitan areas with the largest share of multifamily housing. Now, here I have highlighted the metropolitan areas that do have a multifamily program. Now, these are programs that are specifically targeted to multifamily. It excludes those that have residential and commercial programs to which multifamily buildings are eligible. So this map is looking particularly at those utilities that have multifamily program offerings. And 2 points I want to make about this map before I move on. One, it shows that multifamily programs are overlooked, and they're particularly overlooked in 40% of the 50 metropolitan areas with the largest share of multifamily housing. So basically, there's a lot of room for improvement, and again, as community advocates, there's a lot that can still be done in this space. And here's, again, painting a somewhat similar picture. Looking at the share of households, this is using that same data, but looking at the share of households living in multifamily buildings to the share of residential program dollars going to multifamily buildings. And this is utility spending. And basically what I want to show here is the gap in the 2 lines. This shows where multifamily spending is not keeping pace with the share of the housing market, the share of multifamily housing in the housing market. So that gap between the 2 lines shows that mismatch, and where the lines meet shows that there's a pretty good match there between spending and housing stock. And again, this data isn't perfect because metropolitan areas and utility service areas don't perfectly overlay, but it gives us some sense of what's going on in the market. But now that I have at least shown the landscape of what's being offered, and not all these programs offer financing, but I wanted to give you a sense of what the market looks like before I talk more now about the financing challenges for building owners, right? Because you need a demand for financing, and which Casey talked a bit about as well, and also for utility program administrators and how community groups, housing providers can come together to start working around or overcoming some of these challenges. So I'm going to spend most of my time today talking about the challenge of capital constraints. Right? It's difficult for property owners to pay for upfront cost of energy efficiency projects, and also the lack of technical capacity and time for building owners to engage in these projects. So let's first look at what's being done to overcome capital constraints. One mechanism, and Casey had this in her graph as well, is on-bill repayment. And this is typically coupled with low-cost financing. This is rare, but it is occurring. For an example, PSE&G, a New Jersey-based utility, considers all project costs for a particular building up front, will issue a buy-down incentive, and then building owners will pay the remainder of the cost over time at no interest, presumably somewhat offset or largely offset through their energy savings. So that's one example that that it can meet the challenges for building owners in terms of capital constraints. And something that being ran by utilities, an approach I'll talk about in a little bit more, it can encompass an integrated approach to targeting multi-family building owners. Yes?
That's just when they're the owner of the property pays the utilities, so it wouldn't be applicable if there's tenant-paid utilities, correct?
I'm not sure. I mean, because I'm not sure if it just because I'm sure it covers whole building. I don't know if Casey, if you know, but I'm not sure about that. So I don't want to. If it's separately metered, maybe they'll still do common areas.
There are a couple of models available for financing within multifamily. The on-bill tariff model tends to work in individually metered properties, but there are a few hybrid models out there. One was pioneered in Oregon. It's called the Empower model that works for master metered buildings. It's sort of an energy service agreements type model. And I could probably get you contact information for some of the folks that were developing that model.
Great, thank you, Casey. And also, as many of you know, affordable housing often is financed through low-income housing tax credits, which also offer a strategic entry point for energy efficient financing. On average, every 15 years, these properties are up for recapitalization and typically undergo refinancing and rehab at this time. And so using that as a strategic entry point into integrating energy efficiency into the design phase is one point in which you can work with housing providers, and I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, but aligning utility incentives and rebates with these strategic entry points in the design phase of rehab for affordable housing, especially that's financed through low-income housing tax credits, is something that, when done right, works really well. And the crucial part there is aligning the incentives and the rebates and with these cycles of refinancing, which takes, I think community advocates can be crucial players in that phase. We had the representative from DC SEU this morning, the Sustainable Energy Utility, and in DC they work, and I don't think he touched on this, he might have and I missed it, but they work directly with affordable housing providers to incorporate energy efficiency into new construction and also redevelopment, and they apply the incentives and rebates accordingly. So that's another model that works pretty well. And then just two general points before I move on. It's important that utilities are aware and address the unique challenges of low-income housing stock, and we've talked about that a lot today. But I think that's another role that community advocates can talk about when in utility-led programs or utility-led financing. And then also, I have a note here that to provide multiple pathways for participation. I think it's just a reminder that when engaging with building owners, they may not be ready to take on financing or an extensive deep retrofit at a particular time, but kind of creating that pipeline for retrofits down the line is an important mechanism for sustaining demand as well. And lastly, I also want to talk about the importance of strong networks to facilitate demand for energy efficiency investments and then financing, of course. And as Casey mentioned, and I've said this several times, her convening of small lenders found that demand remains a major barrier to energy efficiency finance. Also, research finds that housing organizations need to know several things about energy efficiency investments: how to prioritize need, what to do and when to do it, how to take advantage of existing programs, and of course, how to pay for the programs. So in my opinion, it doesn't have to involve recreating the wheel. A lot of community advocates, affordable housing networks are already in existence and can draw on, and utility program administrators can draw on these existing housing networks, both for marketing the programs and building the capacity for energy efficiency investments in multifamily housing, right? And again, better coordination among these groups can look like meetings, workshops, trainings on the ground, but it's essentially building the knowledge and the know-how and the capacity for those considering taking on energy efficiency investments. A great example of this is the LEAN network operating in Massachusetts. They implement retrofits in low-income multifamily buildings, and in order to do that, they offer benchmarking services. So they get building owners to start looking at energy use. They conduct energy assessments. They conduct technical assistance and apply grant funding. They're funded primarily by utilities and operated by this LEAN network. Now, LEAN stands for Low Income Energy Affordability Network. And it's made up of public housing agencies, CDCs, tenant organizations that are all coming together to streamline rebates and financing into the low-income multifamily housing sector throughout the state of Massachusetts. And it's been quite successful in providing consistent and streamlined services, not to mention the outreach that they're doing with these building owners, again, creating that more of a demand for energy efficiency investments. And also, I know I'm running somewhat out of time, but I want to harp on this one point that I've said a few times now throughout my presentation, and that's the importance of creating partnerships for an integrated program approach, right? And Casey, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we talk about this in the space of financing for energy efficiency, we're talking not about finance as a standalone piece, but again, creating that demand of building owners and walking them through the process, which would eventually lead to a deeper energy efficiency investment, which would require finance. And it's built on, some of us in the energy efficiency world know the model of a one-stop shop for service provision. And essentially, when we're talking about an integrated program approach, we're talking about this one-stop shop model that integrates low-cost financing as a target outcome. And two quick examples of this would be the Massachusetts Green Retrofit Initiative, which is funded by the Barr Foundation and the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And LISC works with a number of other community organizations to develop a model to help building owners, again, track energy use through benchmarking and help them prioritize investments, and then align utility incentives and rebates and prepare a financing package. So again, where possible, their main goal is to really align the upgrades with refinancing through housing finance agencies too. So that's a big piece of it. But again, it's a process of working where community groups are really the crucial factor. And lastly, the Energy Savers Program, which is operated in Chicago by Elevate Energy and a Chicago-based CDFI. And it's funded through utilities, state, local, and federal government and foundations. And together they provide low-interest loans to multifamily building owners and also offer this single point of contact to building owners and stay with the building owner from tracking energy usage to verifying the quality of work and outcomes of particular investments. So again, I think that just ending on the integrated approach, key elements are working together with housing finance agencies, utilities, and a lot of the community groups on the ground, and kind of capitalizing on those networks that are there to mobilize the demand for finance. Thank you.